What if Alzheimer's disease does not begin the day someone forgets their own child's name? What if it actually begins decades earlier, quietly reshaping the brain, while the person seems completely normal? New research from Mayo Clinic reveals that subtle biological changes linked to Alzheimer's may begin as early as someone's late 50s, decades before memory loss or any other symptom ever appears. Today I am going to show you exactly what is happening inside the brain during this hidden phase, the 7 early signs that show up during completely normal conversations in daily life, years before anyone suspects dementia, and the simple early actions that could change everything. Sign number 5 happens during conversations millions of families have every single day, and almost nobody recognizes it. 7.4 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's right now, and about 1 in 9 people over 65 has the disease. Alzheimer's is caused by 2 abnormal proteins, amyloid plaques and tangled tau fibers, that build up in the brain and gradually destroy connections between nerve cells. Damage initially appears in the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for forming new memories, and then slowly spreads to other regions. Here is the critical fact almost nobody knows: cognitive performance and amyloid buildup in the brain begin accelerating measurably in a person's early 60s, meaning the disease process is well underway roughly 10 to 15 years before a diagnosis is typically made. This is not a disease that suddenly appears. It is a disease that has been quietly progressing for years before anyone notices. Here are the 7 early signs that appear long before obvious memory loss. Early sign number 1: subtle changes in how someone speaks and tells stories. Research published in The Lancet found that 7 years before an official Alzheimer's diagnosis, people already showed subtle changes in the complexity of their speech, detectable by computer analysis with 74% accuracy. Sentences become shorter and simpler. Descriptions become less precise and detailed. A person who once told rich, detailed stories begins speaking in shorter, more basic sentences, often dropping small words like and the. Family members rarely notice this gradual shift, because it happens so slowly, conversation by conversation, year by year. Early sign number 2: a declining sense of smell. Problems with smell, known as olfactory dysfunction, are linked to mild cognitive impairment and often precede the cognitive and motor symptoms of dementia, occurring as amyloid and tau proteins begin accumulating in the brain's smell processing regions. A person may stop noticing when food has gone bad, fail to detect smoke, or simply mention that their favorite perfume or coffee does not smell the way it used to. This sign sounds completely unrelated to memory, which is exactly why it gets dismissed for years before anyone connects it to brain health. Early sign number 3: difficulty with complex financial tasks. A person may begin struggling to follow a familiar recipe, having trouble keeping track of monthly bills, or making errors managing finances that they previously handled with ease. This often shows up first as late payments, confusion about which bills have already been paid, or difficulty calculating a tip at a restaurant, small administrative slips that get blamed on being busy or distracted, while they are actually early signs of declining executive function. Early sign number 4: word-finding difficulty that goes beyond normal aging. Everyone occasionally struggles to find the right word, but a worrying pattern is when someone substitutes a word that genuinely does not fit the conversation, describing a watch as a hand clock, for example, rather than simply pausing to remember the correct term. The difference between normal aging and an early warning sign is frequency and pattern. Occasional word searching is normal. Consistent substitution of incorrect, unrelated words is not. Early sign number 5, and this is the one that happens constantly and almost nobody catches it: repeating the same question or story within the same conversation. A person asks what time the family is arriving for dinner. 10 minutes later, they ask again, not because they are being difficult, but because the short-term memory required to retain that information for even a few minutes is already being affected. Families often interpret this as not paying attention, being preoccupied, or simply a personality quirk for years before connecting it to a deeper memory issue forming behind the scenes. Early sign number 6: withdrawal from social activities and hobbies. A person experiencing early cognitive changes may begin removing themselves from hobbies, social activities, work projects, or sports, partly because they struggle to keep up with what's happening, and partly because they feel self-conscious about changes they are noticing in themselves but not yet ready to discuss. This withdrawal is frequently misread as depression, retirement adjustment, or simply someone becoming more private, when it may actually represent a person quietly trying to hide cognitive struggles they have already noticed in themselves. Early sign number 7: apathy and loss of interest in things they used to care deeply about. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found that apathy may specifically signal someone someone progressing from mild cognitive impairment toward Alzheimer's disease, appearing as a flattening of emotional engagement and motivation well before memory symptoms become obvious. A person who was once passionate about gardening, cooking, or family gatherings becomes notably indifferent, not sad exactly, just disengaged, in a way that feels different from their established personality. Now, here is what changes everything. Early diagnosis gives people the chance to identify the underlying cause of these changes, some of which can actually be reversible, and if it is Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, treatment started early is significantly more effective at slowing disease progression. New blood-based biomarker tests can now detect Alzheimer's-related brain changes in people as young as 50 to 55 who are showing early signs and symptoms, allowing detection far earlier than was previously possible. This is a major shift in modern medicine. For the first time, families do not have to wait for severe memory loss to get answers. If you notice 2 or more of these signs in yourself or someone you love, particularly a combination involving speech changes, repetition, and withdrawal, talk to a doctor and ask specifically about cognitive screening and the newer blood-based biomarker tests for Alzheimer's. The earlier this process is identified, the more options exist to slow it down and plan for the future. If this video helped you recognize something happening in your own family, please share it right now. So many families spend years confused and frustrated by changes they cannot explain, when recognizing the pattern earlier could have opened the door to help much sooner. Subscribe and hit the bell, because in my next video I am going to reveal the disease silently damaging your lungs right now, affecting millions of people who have never smoked a single cigarette in their life, and the early signs that get mistaken for simple aging or being out of shape.